Hello my friends, hello my besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alexis and today we're going to be doing an internet history deep dive into the bookstagram Soapgate scandal of 2018. I haven't done a video like this before, but I'm very excited to do a deep dive into this very interesting piece of internet culture history. For some context, I personally joined bookstagram 8 years ago and I would consider myself a very seasoned bookstagrammer. I have seen so much of the big dramas that have happened in the past decade in real time, including the infamous Soapgate. I've been wanting to make a video like this forever because honestly Soapgate has lived rent-free in my mind since it happened, and while I was researching I found out so much more information about this incident that I wasn't even keeping in my brain, including an entire Wikipedia article that deep dove into all the details, and I thought it was so interesting and fascinating. I will be linking my sources down below, so if you are interested in reading more about this scandal or looking into other details I might not include in this video, definitely check out down there. So, Soapgate is going to take us back to Instagram in 2018. Soapgate started when a company called Bookish and Stuff decided to make an Alyrian themed book box. For some context, this specific book subscription company was really well known for curating book boxes that specifically targeted book boyfriends that were popular at the time. In 2018, they were selling their next upcoming Alyrian book box. It was marketed as being 18 plus and was specifically featuring the male main characters from a very popular series by Sarah J. Maas, Court of Thorns and Roses. When you were buying this box, you could select which of the 3 male main characters was most appealing to you, being Rysand, Cassian, Asriel, and you would, in essence, be receiving a subscription box about whichever one of these book boyfriends you liked the most. Around this time, this was a very popular thing to do book subscription boxes with specific themes around popular books. I myself even purchased a variety of these book subscription boxes at the time from different companies. So while I have not specifically purchased anything from this company in the past, I do understand why there was a demand for this type of product and why it was a big deal. While doing research, I found that the company Bookish and Stuff does still exist today. However, they have since rebranded to the Book Boyfriend box, and that is a still up and running company. So I also want to say please don't give any hate to this company. They are still running. They have moved on from it. I'm not dredging anything up back for them. If you are interested though, sincerely, the Book Boyfriend box is still up and running and you can join their waitlist for specific boxes. They work specifically with authors to curate unique high quality boxes that enhance your reading journey and reflect your dream male main characters. Their site is very clearly labeled not safe for work, and they claim that every purchase is one of a kind. But we're not going to be focusing on present day. Let's head back to 2018 for this particular book box. It is so important to note that this box did come with a very strong and specific warning that the contents inside were for people who are 18 plus. It said, and I quote, "Mature content. This box is recommended for those 18 plus because of the sexual nature of some of the designs or content that will be included." So, in a nutshell, if Alyrian wingsmans, smut, and sexual innuendos isn't what makes you love the Night Court's Alyrian males, this box isn't for you. What made this box stand out and what led to all this drama was the contents inside the box. We're going to start with the least controversial items and work our way down the ladder of yikes, why did they include that? The first few items in the box included a pillowcase for whatever character you specifically mentioned, 2 small buttons, 2 chapsticks, and a book sleeve. Onto the yikes part of the contents. Each box included a dirty smut letter that was addressed to the person who purchased the box, a bound fanfiction booklet featuring fanfiction about the characters the box was based on, a art print featuring the character of your choice naked covering their package, and a mystery item which turned out to be soap of a specific shape. From this list alone, we have a lot to unpack, starting with the smut letter. According to a source I found, there was an Etsy creator under the name Bookified who was responsible for writing the dirty smut letter. Bookified was once a running Etsy shop with nearly 1,000 sales who would write you a personalized letter from your favorite characters. However, their shop is no longer active and I'm not entirely sure when they stopped being a business. From the sources I've seen online, many of them claimed the writing was incredibly cringeworthy, sexual, and uncomfortable to read. However, that was not nearly as bad as the bound fanfiction that was sent out, because this is illegal. In every single box, there was a bound collection of fanfiction novellas titled A Court of Smut and Wingspan. Each of these bound pieces of fanfiction had 3 short stories inside, assumingly each featuring one of the different 3 male main characters. There was A Court of Wings and Thrusting, A Court of Groans and Water, and A Court of Crowns and Passion. Ugh. This is very clearly not good. Like, it is not okay and illegal to sell fan fiction and to use copyrighted characters or worlds for profit when it's unauthorized. This immediately caused controversy because it's disappointing, it's illegal, and it's simply not okay. You cannot sell your fanfiction in this bound way and infringe on the copyright of the characters in the world that belong to Sarah J. Maas. Isn't the biggest part of the video. Obviously this is about hashtag Soapgate, but I did think it was important to bring up the other items that were in the box and why there was already controversy minus the soap. It is wrong and illegal, and it was sincerely a bad decision for them to include a bound piece of fanfiction in the box. Also, while I could not find any receipts for it, I do very distinctly remember them trying to say that they didn't charge for the fan fiction, that they were justified in including the bound piece of fan fiction in the box because they didn't factor it into the cost per box. However, I also could not find any record of this being said besides just my memory, and even so, I think there would still be a lot of legal repercussions for actually binding and giving out and distributing this fanfiction in a way that is commercial. Even if you were to claim that the fanfiction was like a free add-on, I think there really is this gray area where they would have to prove it was not factored into the cost of the box. However, like I said, this is just my memory. I was there during this, I was reading all the things as they came out, but I cannot find any evidence of a statement from the company where they said this. Additionally, since at least they've rebranded, they have deleted all of their old stuff. You cannot find anything about this specific book box on their past boxes page, on their website, Instagram, etc. And I wasn't able to access any of their old statements directly outside of screenshots or written accounts that others had saved from this time. The next item, which of course was a bit iffy, was the suggestive art print. As I mentioned, when you purchased the box, you got to choose which of the 3 male main characters you were most interested in, and you would get an art print featuring them pretty much entirely naked, barely covering their private parts. Honestly, art prints are whatever you want, but just like imagine coming into someone's house and that is hanging on their wall. You walk in, you're like, hey, oh my gosh, how are you doing? And it's just an almost completely naked fictional man on their wall, just like covering their bits. Like, imagine the conversation. I feel like, how would you even have this art print anywhere but like in a drawer? Because how would you want people to see that? Like, in my opinion, I feel like there was not much of a reason to include this art print in the box. I'm sorry. On to the aforementioned soap. The soap of the hashtag Soapgate. When they were advertising the box, they did release clips of a few of the items early, but they also were heavily leaning into the idea that there would be a mystery item included in the box, which ended up being a bar of soap. And the reason this is controversial, because it was shaped like a pee-pee. Like, it was shaped in a way that was inappropriate. Like, I cannot show you a picture. It will have to be blurred, but there are pictures of it out on the internet still if you are curious to actually get a look at this thing. If you are unfamiliar with Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses series, you might be extra confused why this was included in the box, and that's because not only are these books very sexual in nature, contain smut, but they also have this long-running joke like bit that the size of the male's wings relates to the size of their junk, essentially. And it is just a long-running joke. That's why you might hear jokes about wingspan or how large a wingspan is when people are talking about this series. Even with this bit being part of the series, I don't think anyone expected the soap. The soap itself is dark purple and blue in colored, and it was scented allegedly like blueberries. Regardless of which of the 3 characters you chose, it was the same soap. It also had a suction cup on the back of it, which definitely contributed to this controversy. It was quickly dubbed Soapgate and caused a lot of outrage and conversation, including other people having to warn each other away from using it in a way other than intended. Oh my gosh, what in the world? The inclusion of this soap in this box very quickly became known as Soapgate, or the YA soap crisis, and it had a lot of controversy and backlash and articles coming out about it. Okay, sorry about the shift in positioning, my camera died, but we are back now. Can you imagine the shock of this thing, of opening a book box and finding this item inside of it? For many reasons, it had the people that received the box and those who didn't very divided. On one hand, the box was very clearly advertised to be for those who are 18 plus. In the warning, it did mention that items in the box would be sexual in nature and therefore truly 18 plus. However, at the time, there was also a bigger conversation to be had about the genre and age classifications of the Sarah J. Maas books. and who they were being advertised and targeted towards. If you don't know, Sarah J Maas is a very famous author who at that time had two very popular ongoing series, Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses. The first, I believe, 4 or so books in the Throne of Glass series do not contain any on-page sexual activity and therefore were more marketed towards YA. Dare I say it, they were seen as young adult at the time. In my experience as a middle schooler in 7th and 8th grade, the first several books of that series were in our library. That's actually how I read them and discovered them. However, there was a shift towards, I think, the 4th and 5th book of the series, Queen of Shadows and Empire of Storms, when Sarah J Maas began writing sexual content into the book that was described on page. At this time, I distinctly remember my librarian in middle school mentioning that they were not going to continue getting the rest of the books in the series because of the shift to more adult topics, both sexually and otherwise. At this time, that series was starting to become more known for being an adult series, but for a while, I truly believe and want to say that Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses was seen as young adult. While nowadays in 2025 that seems wild due to how famous these series have become, back then, while they were very popular and famous series, their perception of them was very different and they weren't known to be this smutty, eschewal series the way they are nowadays. So when A Court of Thorns and Roses came out and the first books in that series started to develop, it was really being pushed towards YA readers and was being called a YA book. I mean, when I read these books, I was in 8th grade. They were readily available to me as an 8th grader because they were young adult at the time. They were very accessible to a young adult audience and they weren't perceived to be these like crazy smutty fae books like they are today. I am not necessarily saying that this is right. Her books do have sexual content in them that are much more geared towards adults and they are featuring adult characters, but at the time it was a very mixed conversation, especially when you consider that in Throne of Glass, Selena / Aelin was, I believe, 16 or 17, and in the first A Court of Thorns and Roses book, Feyre was 18 or 19. They were in the demographic of character ages that went to the young adult genre. Which is honestly part of why the soap was such a controversy. Because this item, this suggestive shaped item, was being featured in a box for a series that was walking this very odd middle ground of age group divisiveness. Nowadays, we look at this very black and white, which is why I want to emphasize that it was a gray area back then. Obviously, this series is for adults, and we understand that now, we know that now, and it is promoted as a new adult or adult book. But at the time, it wasn't. These books were readily available for young adults, and her books, which were YA at the time, were accessible for kids 12 to 18 years old. This discussion is massive and obviously applies to a lot more than just Sarah J Maas and her books, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you think that the soap being included in the box was a okay decision or not, if you think that the book box itself had a responsibility to consider that people might not listen to their warning, or if you think that their warning was enough that you think it was on the consumer to sign up for. Do you think that even with it being a box with the 18+ warning that it was weird or a normal item to include this piece of soap? I think in hindsight that this was a lot more dramatic than it seems like it is today. Like, we look back on this event and it doesn't sound all that wild, but at the time it was very dramatic and was a big deal. But I also think if it did happen again today that it would be treated as a big controversy. With the explosion of these books in the past 7 years, we are able to look back at 2018 and recognize that these books are definitely very adult and contain a lot of adult topics. Regardless, as this began blowing up, a lot of those who were receiving the box were posting about it, talking about it. Those who were not receiving the box were talking about it, and there were even news articles written about it. So in response, here is what Bookish and stuff had to say. Of course, know the debate about what really is a YA series, and if ACOTAR should be YA or new adult, it's an ongoing discussion, one we do not control. However, that fact that the series contains a multiple graphic S scenes remains. Our box was advertised and sold to adults 18+. We offered multiple warning about it's not safe for work and mature sexual content. The infamous soap should be taken as the joke it is. A literal Alyrian wingspan, it even says so on the label. These are sold as a bachelorette joke favors in the real world. We want to clarify that they are for external use only, as instructed on the label. But with everything in life, there will always be those that are scandalized. If the box scandalized you, it wasn't for you. Most of the feedback we have received has been positive. Please tell me what you think. I remember this drama and the controversy like it was yesterday, and I'm like baffled by it still. It was such a messy situation, so please drop your feelings and thoughts down below. As I mentioned, all of the resources I found will be linked down in the description, so if you want to do more reading, you are more than welcome to. I still find this situation to be beyond baffling to this day. While Soapgate might not live rent-free in other people's minds, it's definitely a situation that lives rent-free in mine because of how explosive and dramatic it was at the time, especially in a world where book boxes were a very hot, new type of commodity in the book space. And Sarah J Maas was slowly beginning her uphill climb as a very famous author, especially being someone who was in her target demographic at the time. I think that's part of why this stands out so vividly to me, but I would be interested to hear from you if you remembered this happening, if this sounds completely unfamiliar to you, and of course, was it justified that we called this Soapgate, or was that blowing it out of proportion? Regardless, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. If you liked this style of video, please let me know. I feel like it'd be very fun to dive into other bookish controversies or drama from the past several years and do sort of like a sit down deep dive telling you the tea type of video vibe. So if that's something you're into, please let me know. Regardless, I hope you're doing well, I hope you're doing amazing, and I will see you next week, okay? Bye!